Okay, so one of the next things we have to do before we can successfully create virtual desktops, after we've installed the connection broker role, after we've installed the web access role and the virtualization host role, we have to configure the connection broker. If you need to do, if you've done some of these things already, you can skip down to the Active Directory part. You need to give it a domain, give it an OU. You kind of need to be able to select an OU so you can set up the permissions. Now, if you get an error here, it's not the end of the world. What you're going to do is pick your OU, and if it says, this doesn't have the right permissions to create virtual desktops automatically, don't worry. To set those permissions up, click Apply, click your Generate Script. You're going to take that Generate Script over to a DC. Now, you're going to have a way to move this over. Because remember, this can't happen on the domain controller. You do not use a domain controller for a role like this. This has got to be a member server strictly. So you'll generate that script. Basically, you click that Generate Script button, and you get a text box with a PowerShell script in it. You take that PowerShell script, you move it someplace else, you run it. It generates the permissions you need. And depending on your workflow, either you close this down. Honestly, it's okay to just close this down, start the process over, go right back to Active Directory, pick your domain, pick your OU, click Apply, click OK, and boom, that's all there is to it. Now, the next thing you'll need to do is create your virtual desktops. This supports either two different types of virtual desktops. Either pooled virtual desktops. All your VMs share the same image. Changes to the VM disappear when the user logs off. So they're linked clones, essentially, non-persistent disks. And so everything disappears when you change it. The other option is personal virtual desktops. Individual VMs assigned to users so that they own those, their changes persist, etc. Now, what you can do, VDI within RDS is designed to be used for Windows 10, Windows 8, Windows 10. It is not designed for server OSs. If you have to have something like that, you need to find another solution. So what you're going to do is activity 917, which we skip, will show you how to create a new Win10 ISO, actually not to create the ISO file, how to obtain the ISO, build a new VM using Hyper-V with Win10. We actually did that, I think in chapter 5 or 6. So no sweat. Do the same thing. One of the things we're going to do here, after you do that, you're going to have to sysprep that image, wipe it clean, and then once you've wiped it clean, leave it alone. So you're going to, because the thing we're after here is an image we can essentially treat like a template. Because when we're creating these pools, we point at this image, and it's going to treat that as the master. It doesn't turn it into a template the way you would in VMware Horizons, but it effectively treats it as a template. Now, the fact that you sysprep it first, which you should do, effectively turns it into a template. You could run it, but if you did run it after you sysprepped it, you would unsysprep it and then have to re-sysprep it. Don't do that. It's a waste of time. Anyway, so we've created our virtual desktops. We sysprep them. We get them all ready to go. Now, one thing that you don't have to do here is install an agent on them. Not like we would have to do for VMware Horizons. There's no agent, specifically speaking. Windows actually may be using tools under the hood to do that for you. Okay, though I suppose you could also do things like install integration services or whatnot. Anyway, so once you create your virtual desktops, you're going to create a pooled desktop collection. Um, so you've got your remote desktop services and server managers. You've got you'll have your three options. You'll have your servers, and then your collections at the bottom. You choose that. You're going to create a virtual desktop collection. This is actually the same way you would go to edit those settings, except that when you click that tasks menu, instead of choosing edit your deployment, you would choose create collection. This can create both pooled and virtual desktop collections. You're going to choose a name for your collection. Kind of looks like this. Look at the prerequisites are fairly important here. It has to support ADDS. It has to have an existing virtual desktop. Uh, if you have multiple virtualization hosts, you have to have a virtual switch common to them. And that's one of the choices you can make when you're setting up your virtualization host. There's a checkbox down at the bottom. You can choose create new virtual switch, and it will distribute that across your virtualization hosts. You have to have a group of desktops to manage. The connection broker must have the appropriate privileges in the Active Directory to join virtual desktops to the domain. Domain services must be configured appropriately, which is to say you must have the right users, groups, OUs, etc. So there's that. You can either choose a pooled collection or a personal collection. If it's a pooled collection, you can also choose automatically create and manage the desktops. You can also specify your unintended installation settings if you want to. Basically, choose your correct time zone, choose the correct domain name, the correct OU, specify which users and groups can access the collection. You can even tell it how to, what name scheme to use for new VMs that you generate. And you choose where the VMs will be stored, either locally or across the network. And then you can also choose, if you want to, user profile disks. If you want RDS to maintain profiles for your users so that they have data that persists even when the VM is rolled back to its default state, you can do that. Now, when you do that, you basically build a new, you'll see a new VM pop up in Hyper-V. And as you start new connections, you'll see more VMs pop up in Hyper-V on the virtualization host. In our particular case, because we're using the same system as the web access and connection broker and virtualization host, you can watch all those three things happen at the same time. Let's go back. Here we go. If you were looking at your collections, your windows here change. You'll see a connection window here and a status window here, and you'll see your VMs essentially. You can see your VMs in a couple different ways. So all we have left is a summary. So thank you for hanging in there, and we will be right back.